Morning, guys. You probably didn't take me seriously when I said I'm going to be back in class. Well, those of you who didn't are going to pay for that. Well, I have bad news for you. They took out such a big thing. I have a lot more hard drive, so you're in even more trouble from me. Good news, it's not cancer, but apparently it's a damn aggressive thing, so it could come back. We'll find out. All right. Not still 100%, so I wanted to have it relatively light this week. Light in the sense that I'm just gonna lecture. Next week we're gonna do Jeopardies, as you know from the emails, and after that I should be back to normal. All right, we're gonna start with chapter 8. It's kind of change of gears a little bit, going from more the investments kind of mode of finance, where we look at things like bonds, stocks. We're going to look at other functions of financial management. One of the most important functions of financial management is capital budgeting. This is kind of a catch-all term for what financial managers do. As you know, firms are not just about bonds and stocks. They have businesses. And these businesses develop products, services, and somebody has to come up with an idea. Justin comes up with an idea. He says, let's do this kind of chip. Okay. Technologically, it may sound great, but is that going to make us money? So, capital budgeting is about evaluation of potential investment projects. That usually takes a long time to reveal their true nature, but investment decisions have to be made now. It kind of has these stages. The first part is essentially projecting cash flows from a project. Okay, we came up with this idea. What kind of cash flows do we expect to get this from project? Some of it is going to be based on obviously research and stuff. Second, evaluation of risk and required return. Not all projects are created equally. Okay, certain projects they may have higher expected cash flow, but they may also be risky. This number one we're going to effectively cover in chapter 9. This number two we're going to do essentially in 11 and 12. But we also need to develop methods or metrics, if you will, to make decisions. This is the topic of chapter 8. Ideally, I would have started actually from chapter 12, but we're going to assume certain things. We're going to assume we have a project that costs us, I'm going to call it minus CF0 to invest. It's going to cost us $5 million to put in investment right now, and will generate expected cash flows of, for let's say N years, CF1, CF2. In this chapter, we're going to act, these are given to us. Somebody did the research and they told us these are the numbers. We will also be given some sort of cost of capital, or sometimes we call that hurdle rate or required rate of return. We're going to generically call that R. Also, somebody who works for us will tell us what that number is. We don't know where it came from. Maybe some other additional firm specific requirements, depending upon the case. Given these, we want to develop metrics that's going to help us make decisions. Now, before going into that, we're going to group projects into two groups. A, so-called standalone projects. There is actually a fourth part of this capital budgeting process I haven't mentioned. It's kind of at a higher level for the firm. It's the so-called capital structure decision. How do you finance any investment projects? Do you ask the money from your shareholders? Do you borrow money? Do a combination thereof? That is more of a topic of a higher level finance course. So we're not going to get into that much. If I had not lost a week, I could have done it maybe at the end, but since I did, basically we're not going to be doing chapter 13. When a project is standalone, it stands on its own. You either go with the project or you don't. Technically speaking, no project is standalone. Not accepting the project means you want the firm to stay as it is. Okay? So technically speaking, there is an alternative, doing nothing. But sometimes you have so-called mutually exclusive projects. That means there are at least two alternatives in addition to doing nothing, where if you pick one of those alternatives, by the very nature of the problem, you cannot pick anything else. So only one at most can be picked. You know, example, suppose you're going to use a new database for your firm. Are you going to use Google-based structure or Microsoft-based structure? I mean, given the incompatibilities between them, you probably are going to choose only one of them, or some sort of other thing. Are you going to do Oracle? Are you going to use the cheap but otherwise ineffective access or something like that? Right? Now, when we're developing criteria, we want at least four properties from these criteria, whatever they are. These are desired properties of the investment decision criteria. One, you want all the projected cash flows to be considered. So you don't want the criteria where only a limited number of them uh, uh, are considered. You want time value of the money to be taken into account. Guys, when you're talking about something, you can do that outside. Okay? Obviously, $1 you're going to get next year is not the same thing as $1 you expect to get 10 years from now, independent of what your discount rate is.